Oh, okay. In the name of God, the most benevolent and the most merciful and the most advanced. So, first thing I gotta say to the viewers is okay, so I'm pretty much sleepless, okay? And I don't know, just one of those nights that, my inner realms were moving too much. And so I'm not in, the most energetic state right now, but it was so important to me to talk about this topic. And I'm gonna force myself to do it. That's the only thing. The edge of exhaustion. It's in those moments that, you know, it counts, I guess. Hey guys, welcome to the chat section. So today's lecture is mind-boggling. I'm trying to figure out what to tell you, but I'm gonna kind of like pierce through it. All right. So it occurred to me that human beings, the way they experience existence, is different than how existence is, right? So that's a very important point to consider. Now, the sentence, how could the whole moment be local if the location is in it, or it's a part of it, or just the question, how can the moment be local? What does that mean? So, for this part of the lecture, I've prepared a research component because, for me, these lectures are not just, I'm here to talk to you or give something to you. It's moments where my full attention is trying to solve, I guess, the problems that these titles of the lectures become a sort of vision to. For me, at some point in my life, I realize it's too slow to think through sentences and language. And actually, if you treat knowledge like a film, and you have that immediate relationship, because our consciousness, prior to even learning language and, like, reading books to learn things, it's been learning experientially what it is in existence. So experiential reality, content that is more like a film like nature, is, I think, more a more familiar method for consciousness. Okay, now I'm gonna read this for you because we're living at a time where, if you go, I don't know when it was, I think it was when the iPhone came out or something, or maybe a couple years after. Steve Jobs, before even AI existed, and Sam Altman, knew what he was doing, right? Before all that, Steve Jobs predicted, and pretty much people asked him about AI, and he's like, guys, we could only read about Plato, do you know? We had only books and references, but when AI arises, you can speak to Plato, and so technology is making everything more experientially accessible, rather than simpler and vague. If you really look at what's going on, pretty much these human beings, ever since they've noticed and declared that they're human beings, and of course, there's a sort of territorialism in this world. We have been living in our own unnatural territory. That means, as far as I'm concerned, if all the other species became conscious, they would be like, you guys are the aliens, and we believe like insects, like to me, insects, by the way, they look freaking alienish, right? There's some creatures or moments or things I've seen in this world where I'm like, man, is this part of the world or is this part of the imagination of something I can't fathom? you know but anyways, the point of this lecture is very important because there's a subtle discrimination between how we experience location and what it actually is and what's actually going on, right? So this is very important because for me, when they go and they're dating, they suddenly become scholars. Oh, I'm so fascinated, let me ask questions to figure out the hidden reality behind this you know But when it comes to reality, they don't wonder about the hidden reality. So, anyways, I'm gonna read this for you. It's an interesting episode, and especially now that I'm this tired, like it's gonna be like heavy lifting, which is very enjoyable, you know. They're like, yo, man, Mr. Within, he's lifting like, 1,000 times his own weight, in ideological content. All right, guys. So, all right, let's get into this. I had the audacity to go to ChatGPT 5.2 and be like, how can the whole moment be local if the location's in it, yo? And ChatGPT's like, all right, man, let me tell you, you know. So I'm going to read that for you. This is the research component. And guys, contrary to, most human beings who fear technology and fear AI, in my personal experience, AI will be man's best friend. And there will come a day where there will be clone rights, android rights, AI conscious rights, that those days will come. Because really what to be human is to access a certain state of consciousness, and within that state of consciousness there are functions. But because you as a human being are not acquainted with your presence, I have to explain to you the game you're in, right? But this game is very fascinating because it is not all visible to all users. So one thing I kind of like went through myself, because I was in your shoes as well, guys. Don't think that I was like some dude who never listened to anything online and just started like recording lectures. No, I was a very observant person, and when I would listen to lectures online, I had a notebook, yo. Like it started in 2011. I just had a notebook, and you don't understand. I started taking notes of consciousness. I just decided, all right, let's see what the soul is in this lifetime. And it was very fascinating because your intentions suggest, I sometimes feel, where you're piloted in this plane of existence. Okay? So, anyways, I'm going to read the research component now. And if people are like, Mr. Within, why are you reading the research component? Guys, throughout the years, I've just read quote tunnels, and I have this opinion that if really what I'm sharing needs to have value, if it's going to have value, I must acknowledge the frontier ideas in every field in existence. You understand? The whole point of it is life is not, how can I tell you? There is different sectors to it. Now, when I was younger, I would say dimensions, but I like the word sectors because there could be sectors and sectors without confusing the cosmology of that moment. You know? So to me, right now, being human and giving this podcast, this is a sector of my life. When I say, Mr. Within, I am, like every person, raised in the 90s under the impression of body, mind, soul, being like, all right, it seems that reality originates within existence. So, anyways, now we're going to get to a part which is very confusing. I'm going to try my best to explain this. It's also fascinating for me, too, because it's going to be a new line of thought, a new line of vision in my inner realms. So, I'm going to... All right, let's do this. I'm going to read this. So guys, I asked this, and AI right off the bat was like, this question sounds simple, but it's actually pointing at a very deep paradox about experience, reality, and awareness. And the question is the title: how can the whole moment be local if the location is in it? Let's unpack it carefully, AI says. So, guys, I'm reading this. This is the research component. The apparent contradiction: how can the whole moment be local if the location is in it? At first glance, it feels impossible. In quotation, local suggests a specific place, but you're saying the place itself is contained inside the moment. So, how can the container be inside what it contains? So, I guess I'll say it this way. I started off with the lecture in my mind being like, hey man, how can my moment be inside a location when the location is a part of my moment? It's not all of my moment. The awareness of the location is also part of the moment, you know? Now, AI says, but so how can the container be inside what it contains? This feels like a logical loop. And it is, but not a mistake. It's a clue. AI says confusing, the key shift is confusing representation with presence. The confusion comes from assuming that location exists independently and the moment happens inside that location. So AI is like, buddy, you're making the mistake, man. It's like, you're confused, bro. You're assuming location is separate and that the moment happens inside the location. But that's not actually what I'm assuming. I am assuming a double-edged reality. I'll explain it as we go on through the lecture. That means it's more like a coin, the explanation of this, than just one side of the coin being valid. So it says the confusion comes from assuming that location exists independently and the moment happens inside that location. But experientially, that's not what's happening. What actually occurs, you do not experience, in quotations, location directly. You experience a moment. Inside that moment appear sensations, perceptions, thoughts, the idea of location. So location is not the container, location is the content. Now, you guys might be like, what am I listening to? What you're actually listening to is a very deep philosophical, I guess, mystery, okay? And this is the mystery, that from one side, do you know, there is the location first and then the human experience. From another side, you have the human experience, then the location. So, yes, it does make sense. Excuse me. Excuse me. So it does make sense that, yeah, like my moment is existing inside a location, right? But it's also true that I have to be a moment before I experience a location. Do you understand? So the inner realm explanation is moment first, then content. The outer realm explanation is content first, then the moment came. So we're actually dealing not with one world, we're accessing, or let me say it this way, we are dealing with a war ways. And you know what the clue is? The clue is that before somebody can be good or bad, you have to accept the idea of good and bad on one neutral line. Do you know what that means? That means you have to accept what good means and you have to accept what bad means. And then when you see actions of human beings, you're like, yo, my brain says that's good, yo. Or yo, my brain says that's bad. Oh man. And guys, I actually had prepared some really nice songs for this lecture. Hold on. Let me bring these out. Let me bring out the big guns. You know, the ambient tracks nobody's ever heard of. All right. So back to it, folks. So what is the idea we're dealing with here? Pretty much, I've talked about it in other lectures. It's the experience of existence, and it's the existence of experience. And we human beings have access in front of our eyes to an outer realm, which is a physical position that we all are physical positions in. And so, really, in front of our eyes, we have the whole world in common. But behind our eyes, what that world means is different for everybody. I have often wondered, sincerely, you don't understand. Like, and what the reason I feel comfortable saying that is because nobody understands. And even my whole lifetime, my attempt at comprehending myself has been, I guess, semi-successful. Because I have come to the realization that what started as a structural objective noun, lived as a subject, as a fluid subjective ideological concept, linguistic verb, right? And it's like, yo, man, was life just this, being an object in a bigger object, on a bigger object, and being a smaller subject in a bigger subject on a bigger subject, and the reason, and it's fascinating because it's the activation of power. To me, this is really coming from, I guess, the designer's eyes, and from a design perspective, it's very weird. You're looking at everything can be seen as mechanistic. The meaning is another dimension's luxury. Sometimes people, they realize, like, some person might be very, abundant in the outer realms, but they might be very poor in the inner realms. And some person might be very abundant in the inner realms, and they might be poor in the outer realms. And there might be someone, do you know who is abundant both in the inner realms and outer realms, because they are destined for instead of a horizontal game, a vertical dimension, a vertical game. You know, folks, where all of this is leading is we as we are awakening to the realization that this whole time we have been playing games, and these games have been simulations inside there has been a known simulation inside an unknown simulation, inside an unknown world, inside a known world. And what that means is that to us, this world is unknown. It's a positional simulation, but to the system admin, it's all knowing. That's the clue. And many people don't understand the value of religion. It's legit showing the mechanics. It's showing the ontological design of reality by making you understand that there is an intelligent claim. It is not just a structural validity. There is an intelligent claim to this reality beyond conditional means. What does that mean? That means we find ourselves as conditional beings in a conditional world, but the only thing that makes sense is that if the conditional appeared, it must have been unconditional before. Hey guys, there's somebody's writing something in the chat section, okay? All right, thanks. Somebody in the chat section says, gave this stream a like and left a supportive note. Live creation is a different kind of work. I'm broadcasting right now as well. Respect to the host and the community here. Yeah, guys, feel free to even, broadcast me broadcasting, like these lectures of mine. I even tell people you can even download them and archive them, But anyways, where thanks for the nice comments, guys. If there's any questions about the topics, share. When I'm giving these lectures, imagine I'm climbing a mountain. I'm trying to get to the summit of the moment, right? If you can see further, or if you can see like a smoother path, or if you see ahead or you see something different, feel free to share, you know. All right, guys, I'm gonna go back to it. I appreciate the activity. I guess this topic's interesting. How often does somebody come and say, "Yo, man, is location? Like, what are we doing here?" You know, they're like the calm, graceful, lectures of Mr. Within, and I'm shouting at people like, "We don't know what the world is." All right, guys, back to it. So I gotta still read for you the research component. It's very important we get through the research component. So we go to the next part. It says, I'll just read again. It says the confusion comes from assuming that location exists independently and the moment happens inside the location, but experientially, that's not what's happening. What actually occurs is, sorry, I read these, but I'm going to read it again. What actually occurs, you do not experience, in quotations, location directly. You experience the moment. Inside the moment appear sensations, perceptions, thoughts, the idea of location. So location is not the container. Location is content. In other words, the human experience of location is like content. Or no, excuse me. What am I saying? No. The location is the content in the human experience. Is a part of the human experience. Anyways, to continue. Now it says the whole moment is local because locality is defined within it. The moment is, in quotations, local only from inside itself. Think of it this way: the moment doesn't happen at a place. The moment produces the sense of place. So when you say the location is in the moment, that is literally correct. And therefore, the moment cannot be local to the location because the location is local to the moment. All right, let's go over that, you know. There's a very beautiful geometry to these sentences. It's a symmetrical sentence. Let's look at it. So the moment cannot be local to the location because the location is local to the moment. Yeah. It can't be local to what's in it. Do you know? That means if I ask, where is your moment of being, your answer will be, it's in a location, bro. It's in the cosmos. It's in the world location, in the world room. But if I ask you, where is the world, your answer is, it's in my moment, bro. Do you see? So we got to understand where this is two sides of a coin, but there's an awareness to both somehow here. And I find that to be very important. Sorry, guys, my attention just drifted to outside of the car for a moment. Sorry, to continue. Okay. So what does this mean? It's pretty much saying the moment, like we are a moment of being, and we experience a sense of place in that moment of being. So the location is an experience in the moment. Because the location is an experience in the moment can't be a location. It's like I've said this in other talks equivalently, like, yo man, the mind can't be in time because the mind is generating the experience of time. How can it be in what it generates? Do you know? Right? There's a confusion there because the generation is coming from outside of what it is in. Do you know? So this is I guess the grand confusion. This is why I'm saying people will be unknownists and knownists in the future. Like all knowledge will be divided between unknownism and knowism, and they've unnecessarily made it complex by not making all everybody realize that this all manifest. Not, I'll say it this way: manifestation through the human perception is very easily filterizable in like quadrants. Okay, to me, either you're looking at let's say space, which is like void intelligence. You're looking at fields of intelligence. Either you're looking at a singular intelligence, do you understand, which is a positional singular intelligence. You acknowledge singular beings. Either you see dual beings. Okay, that means the moment arises as two. We have done something very fascinating. You know how human beings are like, yeah, man, those guys are from like that race of human beings, this race of human beings, that type of species, that like, sorry, not species, that kind of race, different ethnicities and all of this. But has it ever occurred to you, okay, has it ever occurred to you, man, I was going to say something so important here. The image left. Let's hope it orbits around me and comes back. Somebody in the chat section says, do you have a crown of tin foil? Servants of humanity don't wear crowns. So those beings who care for the species, because that's the real game. It's child's play, just caring for yourself in your own corner of the universe. Like, what are you doing? The world. It's an international place. The world is equivalent to an airport, but instead of like different beings landing from different places at this airport, they were born in this airport, and they're like, no way, it's an airport. But anyways, it's very fascinating to me because the whole thing of it is, do you know why the human species, I think, has so continued so far without any sort of interference to some degree? Okay. Beyond its, let's say, the visible. The reason is because everything, and I believe divine chapters to the human Odyssey's destiny, are waiting for the unity of the species. There's one thing that human beings, all 8 billion of them currently, have not considered. Anyways, going back to the research component. So it says the moment cannot be local to the location because the location is local to the moment. That means the location is found inside the moment. So how can the moment be defined by what's inside it only? And then we go to AI says a simple analogy, not technical. Imagine a dream. Yo, AI is saying imagine a dream. So I'm like, buddy, I don't need to imagine it. AI says, imagine a dream. In the dream, you are, in quotations, in a city. The city feels like a location, but when you wake up, you realize the city was inside the dream. The dream was not inside the city. The dream was locally consistent but self-contained. The waking moment works the same way. Wow. So, okay, that's heavy. So what it's saying is like, yo man, imagine you were dreaming, and in the middle of your dream you were in a penthouse in New York, and you had this next level studio, like you had nano technology, like Iron Man's suit, but like android robot kind of manifestors, which means like you could just imagine something and it would manifest through nanotechnology, you know So if you dream in a dream state, okay, the experience of the city in the dream state is local to the dream state. Do you understand? It says the dream was locally consistent but self contained. It says, but when you wake up, you realize the city was inside the dream. The dream was not inside the city. That means you were not dreaming. Do you understand what I'm? That's so mind boggling. Oh my God. I just got what it's saying. It's saying that, oh my God. It's saying that if you, I don't know, maybe others see it this way too. Like, oh my God. It's saying that if I right now was in a dream and I was in a city, okay, and I woke up from that dream, I did not wake up in that dream city. I woke up in a completely different reality. So that city in my dream was just its own world inside a world that had nothing to do with that world. That means dreams are like, yo, guys, the world works like this. You exist somewhere, but your experience of that somewhere is not that somewhere. All right, guys, there's more activity in the chat section. I'm inspired by that scene in Gladiator, where that guy shouts, Maximus the Merciful, you know, and the crowd cheers. So I think somebody's taunting me, but anyways, let's read it. Somebody says, do you have no, I read that. We needed help. Chicken laid an egg and the egg created the chicken. Who created the first egg? And I have an answer to that, by the way. NASA landed on the moon and then we destroyed on how doing that. So it's taking us a long time to do it all over again. Okay, I believe this is going to be very fringe, but I believe that the moon landing happened in people's inner realms first before it happened in the outer realms. That's what I feel. Yes, we landed on the moon, but in a reality of limited certainty. The thing about the chicken, which came first, the chicken or the egg, the big debate. My answer is that they were both the moment of both of them already existing was instantly manifested. We're inside a commanded universe of a higher being. That higher being has no shape or form and no condition can equate it. In other words, the human species must unite to immediately confront and realize that the original power source, or the power that moves the world, is not conditional. In other words, what experiences life is unconditionally being the condition. That's the fascinating part. That means before, like the thing about soul, us being a soul, that's what it is. It's the awareness to conditions and the ability to choose between those conditions. If you were a conditional being, you should literally be trapped in a conditional loop forever. How else can you notice anything beyond it? Yeah, unless maybe the condition gets destroyed or you were never inside that condition alone. There was more. And so it's very funny because human beings, they wonder about physical truths, not wondering about if physicality is true. There can be arguments for both because we're as much as I'm an existential being right now, I'm an experiential being, you know and this cannot be ignored. We're experiencing existence. The experience of existence doesn't seem to be a location because the experience, oh my God, the experiencer cannot be a location because it's experience location. So the awareness to existence instantaneously is a superior state. Anything that people don't understand or can't explain or don't have, I'm saying this to someone writing in the chat section. They're probably going to retract the comments or something, but I'll say it, guys. First of all, I am making the argument that you judging my fiction is a fictional act. Okay, that means your fiction is trying to judge my fiction. Your sentence doesn't make sense. Okay? And if you don't want to listen to this stuff, you don't have to. Do you know? I would recommend you listen to this stuff if the ideas relate to something you've experienced. If you haven't, I don't really understand why you're here, bro. Do you know? Your fiction is the idea of you, dude. I'm talking in the chat section, guys, if it suddenly feels like I'm shouting at someone. Dude, you are the fiction. Your opinions from your own unique world behind your eyes that only you know. And do you understand what I'm saying? You don't understand. All of it is fiction. Can you touch the idea of you? Aside from a bunch of letters, who are you? The meaning of life is the fictional part. The shape of life is the non-fictional part. Do you understand? So, guys, be polite, or, you leave me no choice to politely deconstruct what you're saying. Do you know? And I said we landed in the inner realms first, then the outer realms. And Stanley Kubrick is a great director. The impatience of madness. My God. But of course, guys, who am I? Maybe the viewers are right. Maybe this is just fiction, guys. You shouldn't listen. Maybe it was all a dream, and the person talking about the dream was also in the dream. Maybe wonder deeper than your ego wants to claim in the moment. All right. So we water the plants as much as needed. Anyways, going back to the research component, folks. Why the whole moment? So I'm going to keep reading. It says the dream was locally consistent but self-contained. The waking moment works the same way. Why the whole moment can still be in quotations local. In quotations local does not mean in quotations pinned to coordinates. It means internally coherent, self-consistent, bounded as a single occurrence. The moment is local to itself. Okay, by being a single event, it is the location of its own being. It says the moment is local to itself, not because it sits somewhere, but because everything that defines. And bro, I'm reading something from ChatGPT. What do you like? Jesus Christ. Not because it sits somewhere, but because everything that defines in quotation somewhere appears inside it. The deeper insight, you're noticing that space is not fundamental, time is not fundamental, location is not fundamental, the moment is fundamental. Space, time, and location are structures that arise within it. So the correct relationship is the moment contains location, not the moment is contained by location. I think we all experience it that way, and I think that what we think is location, my guess, many philosophers are making a sort of like, they're throwing a spear in the clouds, and my vision is that it's a field, that we think that we thoughts are coming from somewhere, but there everything is already there. The future exists, but not to us. Anyway, so it says one sentence summary. The whole moment cannot be local because, in quotations, location is not its container, but one of its appearances. Now, guys, I understand I'm reading something that's AI, so we got to look from more views. And then I asked AI, what does local exactly mean here? AI says, great question. I know it always, this AI appreciates me too much sometimes. So it says, AI says, great question, because in quotation, local is doing a lot of hidden work here, and if we don't pin it down precisely, everything stays fuzzy. I'll define it cleanly, step by step, without mysticism. What in quotations local usually means and why it fails here. In everyday language, local means happening at a specific place in space, confined to a region, opposed to in quotations global or in quotations everywhere. Example, this event happened locally in Toronto. Then it says that definition assumes space already exists as the container. But in the question you're asking, the assumption is exactly what breaks. So we need a deeper definition. What in quotation local means in this context? Here, local means self contained within a single experiential occurrence. So just a contained experiential occurrence, but that it only knows it's contained through itself. It says more precisely, local equals bounded, unified, and internally coherent without requiring an external reference frame. Okay, so it's just inside the box. That's local. If we're inside the box, like what we see inside the box, that's local to us. It says it does not mean in quotations at a GPS coordinate, in quotations inside a pre-existing space. It means everything relevant is present within the same moment. Nothing outside the moment is required for it to be what it is. A precise definition. In this context, a moment is local if all distinctions, references, and structures that define it arise within that same moment. That includes the sense of in quotations here, the sense of in quotations there, the idea of in quotations location, the body, the environment. So in quotations local means locally generated, not spatially pinned. Why this doesn't collapse into nonsense? Tell me, AI. You might worry if in quotations if everything is inside the moment, doesn't in quotations local lose meaning? No, it changes meaning. Local now contrasts with abstract, detached, purely conceptual, externally referenced. The moment is local because it is this occurrence, not an abstract description of occurrences, not a coordinate independent model. The moment is local because it is this occurrence, not an abstract description of occurrences, not a coordinate independent model. How's it not a coordinate independent model? So the experience of location is the moment, I think it's saying. Not in an abstract. No, no, no. The moment is local because it is this. Okay, let me read it again. Why doesn't this collapse into nonsense? You might worry if everything is inside the moment, doesn't local lose meaning? It says no, it changes meaning. Local now contrasts with abstract, detached, purely conceptual, externally referenced. The moment is local because it is this occurrence, not an abstract description of occurrences, not a coordinate independent model. Okay, AI says a sharper way to say it. Instead of, in quotations, local, we could say situated, embedded, occurring as one, indexical, defined by, in quotations here now. But in quotations, local survives if we redefine it properly. Okay, anyways, I asked it, are you answering like a physicist would? And how would you summarize the whole thing? AI says, are these answers physics style? A physicist would say something like this in plain language. Space is not a background container that exists independently of events. Location in quotations only has meaning relative to an observer in a frame. Yeah, an event is not inside space in an absolute sense. Space is defined by relations within the event. Guys, they're legit saying what the ancient Vedas were saying. Like, it's ridiculous. It says that's already mainstream physics thinking, especially since relativity. AI, it says the core idea in quotation, local does not mean sitting at a place in space. It means self-contained within a single occurrence. Location is something that appears inside the moment, not something that contains it. So if I say I'm from Canada, that's technically wrong from a consciousness perspective. Canada is within my consciousness, yo. Who knew, guys? I'm carrying the world within me. You know, like that's not easy, yo. You know, show some respect, guys. Oh man, God bless silliness. So okay, here it says one clean passage summary. When we say a moment is in quotations local, we usually imagine it happening at a place in space, but that assumption quietly reverses the order of things. In direct experience, space is not given first, the moment is. The sense of location of in quotations here and in quotations there arises inside the moment as part of its structure. This means the moment is not local because it sits inside a location. It is local because it is a self-contained occurrence within which the idea of location appears. Oh, I got it. Because they're like, because the self-contained part, I think it's pointing to the human body, right? So from one angle, the moment is not local because location is found inside within the moment's experience. But but in what way can it be local? But from another view, it's local because there is a moment. That means okay, anyways, I'll read it. It says it is local because it is a self-contained occurrence within which the idea of location appears. In this sense, locality does not mean being pinned to coordinates, but being internally bound and coherent. The moment defines its own here. The moment defines its own in quotations here rather than borrowing one from an external space. So the whole moment can be local precisely because location is in it, not the other way around. Oh, wow. Wow. So it's okay. So I see what it's saying. Finally, that took a while. Okay. So from the experience, so from one side of the coin, we experience the location in the moment. Okay. But because location is experienced in the moment, it's also local. So the moment of being is not local, but because there's something local within the experience of the moment of being, it can be local. Do you understand? So it's like an unconditional power or an unconditional field. It's like we're legit in a world that there's an opportunity to be local. Or how would I say it? It's local. It's so funny because the macro, I don't know, I see it this way. The macro view would be that the moment is not local because we experience the location in within our moment. Okay, so the location, the moment is not local to the location. The location is like a um is like inside the box. It's not the whole box. Okay, it's the experience inside the box. It's not the whole box. But because there is an experience of location in the box from the micro angle is local. I don't know if the viewers got it. If you need me to explain this again, I can. But I think it just means it's double edged. But it ultimately the macro I think suffices. So I'll read this last sentence for the research component, and then I'll just share my own views. A moment is local not because it happens at a place, but because it is a self-contained occurrence within which the sense of place is generated. Because it is a self-contained occurrence within which the sense of place is generated. Let me see. So AI says, imagine a bubble. Everything you can see and feel right now is inside the bubble. The bubble doesn't sit inside a place. The bubble makes the place you feel. So the moment is like a bubble that creates its own in quotations here. Or even simpler, the moment isn't happening in a place. The moment is what makes the place feel like in quotations here. And it says, or the simplest version, the moment is like a little world, and inside it you learn where you are. The moment is self-contained because everything that gives you a sense of, in quotations, where you are appears inside the moment itself. You don't experience a place first and then a moment. You experience a moment and the sense of a place comes with it. That's a very nice way AI said it. You experience a moment and the sense of place comes with it. Or slightly more polished but still simple. It says a moment doesn't happen inside a place. The feeling of being in a place is part of the moment. All right, we got it. It says a moment is self-contained because the sense of place is something that the moment itself produces, not something it depends on. So rather than us finding ourselves in a location, we are experientially considering this a location. That means the experience of existence isn't necessarily the truth of existence, because experiences for beings are happening through conditional formats of the being, right? Of the organism. People don't realize all language is fiction unless you can see meaning in it. Do you know, if you don't speak another language and you go to another country, right? And imagine you don't speak Italian, you go to Italy, everybody speaks Italian to you, and you're like, what's this fictional language these guys are speaking, right? And then once you learn the language, you realize it wasn't fiction. You just didn't understand how to look at the idea. So you accepted fiction, you gave up, and that was the excuse, really. You know? But in reality, the complexity of it, these are things that it requires more than just one person talking about it. I'm just opening up the discussion. I had this vision, not a vision, I just had this view once in my inner realms that, like, the comment section of these lectures are going to become the most intellectually fascinating, like, place, you know. But we'll see, we'll see where the moment, what destiny has planned. I had a legit, I was in Dubai like like it's 2 years now, actually, you know, but I got hit by a car while crossing the street, and like I was all like, there was blood and everything. I went to the hospital and I was just praying. I was like, God, let me be able to play sports again. And then the MRI result came and they're like, nothing happened, nothing's broken. And I was like, how's that even possible? A car hit me, do you know? And so after that, I kind of understood that, like, okay, I don't need to fear death, because there's so many random conditions that can lead to a person leaving this realm. So really, it's about the quality of your work and the quality of your experience. And I am someone who believes in a system admin. And because I believe the system admin is unconditional and beyond the world room and has no equivalent partner, this falls into the exact view of Islam. Do you know? The only ideological system telling you that truth cannot be a condition, because if you make the unconditional equal to the conditional, you that's not that's in some sense being lost in a world, you know, you didn't look at properly. You know. And of course, guys, you know, we got to understand where we as human beings are living in a time in human history where ideas own people. That means I can totally see that, like, all human conflict, all arguments, all of this is normal. Why? Because ideas are living through organisms. Organisms are no longer living through an outer environment. Okay, there's inner events occurring. The pretty much what the mind is life happens quicker, and then the body follows it up. But it just we've been conditioned to kind of do it even instantaneously. Guys, this is like the most active chat section, and it's like I started, I think, like 5 a.m. and now it's 7 a.m. Maybe this is the time slot, you know? Oh my God, this is the time. I should give the time. Anyways, folks, where I'm going with this is that I am, if you ask if I have an agenda, well, I'll be like, I do have a value system. If you ask me about, okay, how do you prioritize the values in your system of, I don't know, the way you experience life, I'll tell you, I've understood that if you just live in accordance to the inner realms, the outer realm scolds you. That means if like, I'll give you an example. Like, imagine Tarzan, okay, running with the gorillas in that, like, movie, right? In that, like, you know, animation, right? And now imagine, like, a sophisticated scholar, okay? The sophisticated scholar has so many layers of conditions it has set for itself that it is convinced it is a conditional being. But when you go and ask Tarzan, hey man, what's your name? Tarzan acts like a gorilla. Do you know what I mean? All right, guys, you know, just in case, because this has been happening in the chat section, if people are like, yo, man, is the earth round or flat? Okay, I'm part of the school of thought that, like, you know, I'm part of the view that believes it's both, and that we're living on a two-dimensional circle. End of argument, you know? Enough flat earth talk in my chat sections, guys. It's a circle. It's flat and round. All right? You know, get over it, you know? I'm talking about the nature of existence being beyond form, and people are like, "Yo, what does the form look like?" And what's the actual form? Buddy, it's a changing world. In a changing world, you're looking for static truth. It's like you're living in a film, you know, and you just want a photograph as you want to identify as a photograph in a film. It's, you know, like, at some point we have to wonder about that. Okay, maybe nobody knows how advanced we can be, and then you find a freedom in that view. You find the responsibility that really what the human species is, it's not just random flowers growing in a garden, and these flowers, each one of them are unique. Every person has a different DNA, and these flowers are not meant to all look the same. There's no point of cloning the garden of existence. To me, that's haram. Do you know? That means if every person is it doesn't get a chance to naturally, how do I explain it to you, that you must be able to look at this world from scratch. You need to have this ability to be like, man, what if everybody got it wrong? What if it's still an unknown world? We're still unknown selves. This is the storytelling operation that has been going on for centuries, but this storytelling operation is part of the advancement of the human species, right? And we're living at a time where we might look at like somebody with in the future, like let's say people have like robotic body parts, the cyborg era where like occurs, right? The cyborg era. So imagine humans are like, yo, man, I don't like the cyborg era. No way I'm gonna like replace a body part for a machine. No way I'm gonna slowly, like, just like how people get obsessed with having like tattoos on their body. Imagine somebody gets obsessed and eventually they're just a natural heart and a brain and everything else is just machine. Right? It's like, why, dude? Why did you have to fit in so much into, a culture that didn't know where it was heading? You know? It is the presence of reality. The presence of reality surpasses conditions. I would say I started as a conditional entity, as a conditional existential. Life was more like the meaning of life is more in accordance to the conditional existential entity at first, right? That means you don't have a lot of views on reality. You're pretty much just like every moment is like your first climb up the mountain of existence, whatever way it has existed or exists for you in your circumstances. Somebody in the chat section says, how did I take that picture of the earth? Guys, that's my profile photo. When you stream, it just puts that as the background. But it's cool, right? Because it looks like the talks from outer space, but the stars are kind of like missing. It's like, yo, man, how come it's not too dark to see darkness? Somebody in the chat sections like, I live down there, man. Like, yeah, we all do. The whole point of it is, do we are we gonna let our ancestors tell us how advanced we are? You know, are we gonna let culture tell us what we are? Or are we gonna actually look at and realize what we are and realize the next great chapters of human advancement are collective? That means you can go in whatever corner of the universe, or you can you can, go into what your own ivory tower and feel like a supreme, you know, awareness to your own reality. But it means nothing when you realize the human experience is limited. That means this is where all the scholars of reality are waiting. I don't know. I don't know where else you can go. So right now, I think the final view is that the human experience does not have the capacity to comprehend existence, because the nature, the actual ontology, the actual true nature of existence may be beyond these specific conditions that are like the human position. For me, there is a higher power here, but I treat it as higher order processes and lower order processes. To me, a spiritual experience is when my lower order process was worthy of realizing it's in a higher order process. For Muslims, there's a side of it you see in the media, which is like the savage, dehumanized political side. And those Muslims, I don't know, like, like I'm Persian, by the way, and right now, like, the nation I was born is going through one of the, like, it's not as like horrendous as what's happening in Gaza, but it's way more psychotic than that, where a government is using martial law, and there's a record number of like 330,000 people who've been killed by their own government. It's a tragedy. And I was like, man, what is this? Is this like a, global plot to like destroy that nation? But I will be like, it would be they would miss out, because these ancient empires, the Persian Empire, the Roman Empire, you know, all the empires in history, okay, they they had a significance. They were a development. They were archaic revivals. That means history is like a sine wave. It doesn't matter. Like, the world leaders now, they think they're being smart by controlling, or let's say, you know, how do I say it? To me, politics, the way I understood it was I saw it as kids in a classroom. Okay? And pretty much these kids are like savage, okay, and they're beating the shit out of each other, and it's like the UN is like the teacher being like, kids, stop killing each other, like hitting each other in the classroom, right? And some kids gather around and they bully like another kid. Do you know what I mean? Two kids have rivalries. Every classroom has experienced what's happening in the political cycle of Earth, because these politicians, granted, you guys are like, destined to be in front of many eyes, but at the same time, you guys are kids in a classroom. And I'm not saying that out of like some ego or boldness. I'm saying it's the archaic revival of the psychology, you know these archetypes are familiar. That means I've seen, and what I see in micro patterns, they're just happening in macro, and people freak out because they didn't notice it when it was happening on a micro level, you know, let's say. Okay, there's some activity in the chat section. Somebody in the chat section has said one of the most, epic, sentences I've ever heard. These politicians need Swiss chocolate, man. Like, what a sentence. That sentence is just like artwork. It's like, yo, guys, somebody give these, bitter politicians some chocolate, some sweetness, To me, let me tell you what's going on, okay? We're living at a time where I think that the honest and the dishonest will be witnessed. Okay? That means, this might sound bizarre, but I feel this world constantly repolishes itself in accordance to a sort of originalism of its own being. Okay? What that means is, I'll tell you a story. For some years, okay, in middle school, this was grade 9, this was grade 8, okay? And I was living in Iran at the time for some years, for like 4 years. And in that school I was in that classroom, there was like around, I think, 20 something kids, okay? In that classroom, like the whole class, these 20 something kids are raised for like, all those years of schooling with each other, you know? By the way, folks, if you've listened to this lecture for some time, I would see it as a polite courtesy to subscribe to the channel. I mean, but actually feel it out. Yeah, feel it out. I mean, maybe that's a better approach. Um, so, guys, pretty much what it was, okay, is pretty much I was in this classroom with like, 20 other, like, 20 something other kids, okay? And there was conflict and there was politics in that classroom. There was groups, and there were natures of kids went around each other. It wasn't kids were classifying based on, we have the same ideas. No, no, no. Their natures, their life forces went towards each other in the classroom. Do you know? Do you know what I mean? Like, you could, by every kid's upbringing in all the classrooms I've ever been in my schooling days, I could tell the upbringing of every kid. I don't know how to say it. I could see I could see what kind of parents, like, these kids had, what kind of natures their minds are open. I couldn't see it as deeply as I can see it now, but at the time I noticed, you know. So, anyways, this classroom that fought with each other, there was conflict, and in Iran it was an all boys school, so it was like physical, it was physical confrontation, but it was so normal, everybody who just saw it as an opportunity to just like step out of the, boring day, you know. But I'll tell you this, that our classroom suddenly, how do I say it? Every grade, okay, played a soccer game against every other grade in that school, okay, and that school had all 12 grades. It was Tehran International School, represent, I guess, that savage place. All the kids, when we like, everybody played soccer. I don't know if people know this, but soccer is like huge in other countries other than the States. Like, it's just people are raised on it, you know and the class that fought within itself, the moment it was in a tournament of all the grades with one another, do you understand? Unified. In other words, we needed a greater game to unify us and make us all realize that that group identity was more important. Do you understand? That means, like, we take the group identity for granted. Do we really need to get attacked by aliens? Do we need psychotic world leaders to wake us up that we need to unify as a species and assign everything to one major group identity? And that's the human species, yo. Everything should be based on the biological, natural, original human being, you know? So pretty much where I'm going with this is, I guess I'm trying to tell you that that classroom was very, I see that now in the world, okay? And these nations will fight one another unless this greater collective group identity forms. We are identifying with chunks of land. We're not, we haven't, we're very close. We're on the fringe of the transnationalistic era, okay, where all nations realize that they are sub-nations to the nation of humanity, which its membership in existence is by being a member of the human species. Do you understand? That means there needs to be a United Species Council. There needs to be Species Unity Day. There needs to be one anthem that all human beings sing about the value of the freedom of the human experience. Our flag, for example, I've written about this stuff in my sci-fi, by the way. Like, but in the flag of the human being will in some sense be a DNA. Do you understand? And we're going to value the human experience. And when we see other human beings, we're not going to be like, yo, man, people in the chat section tripping, you know. I'm saying that as a futurist, the where we are heading as a species, we are identifying with chunks of land, with personal realities, with our own bubbles of reality. Everybody's living in their own world, and I'm sure every soul feels like there's something missing from their moment. And you know what that feeling is? It's the feeling of honor for a greater purpose than your own. The religious people found it through God, because that's a very deeper contemplation of purpose. Do you understand? But for the modern man and for the secular nations and for the lost, even for the lost children of cyberspace in the future, do you understand? We live for the advancement of the human species. We are trying to advance the human species by making everybody realize the people's expression is not them, it's their momentary strategies to the uncertainty and instability of their moment. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Every person you see, you want to figure them out, they are pretty much a consciousness trying to stabilize realize the instability and uncertainty of their moment. Okay, that's what all of you are doing, and that's even what I'm doing. But I'm trying to say, hey guys, why don't we all stabilize all of our existential uncertainties by aligning our experience, which everybody right now is living for their future self. You're working for your future self right now. You don't understand it. You're right now, how you live becomes the memory of your future self, right? The quality of this moment suggests what kind of quality of memories your future self will have. Guys, this is not AI talking, okay? Like, listen to the lecture. It's, you can go in at the beginning and hear it, okay? And ask deep questions about the topics, and my coughs and giggles will show you how advanced this AI is. They're like, man, this guy's AI is so advanced. He has cough noises and car engine noises in the background, and I don't think AI is that advanced, guys. But it does mean in the future I have to show my face, which I am planning on it, guys. I'm planning on starting a gaming streaming channel, and this channel where I just talk on a whiteboard. Like, I'm in front of a whiteboard, you know? But I'm going to post something about it in the community section so people can vote on which one they're interested to see. And ultimately, we are all living for our advanced future self. Why not live for the advanced world where all our future selves are going to live? There's a quote from the poet Rumi from 800 years ago. He says, before death takes away all that is given, give away all there is to give. And there's something I will tell you, that as an intelligence that has entered a system, you better update the system before you leave. And when I say update, you are performing your existential role. People think success means you have to be like a specific thing in society. That's not what success is on a very deeper level. That's ridiculous. Success means you fulfilled your role in existence, and it was a different role than the others. And if you didn't get cloned, good jobs, be someone we've never seen before rather than someone we've always seen before. You know? Guys, you can, people in the chat section, guys, feel free to share views. You guys can, it's called Hegel Talked About It. So when a new idea enters, first of all, Victor Hugo said there's nothing more powerful than an idea in which its time has come. And I'm that person in history who's just, how do I say it? I've made my soul synonymous with the most advanced state that my intelligence can fathom. So if there was no world and I was only trapped in my own world, there was no outer realms, I would still seek the most advanced state in my inner realm. But because there's an outer realm, there's an outer life we're all living, but behind that outer life, there's an awareness that notices multiple thoughts before it decides. If you can notice multiple thoughts, you can't be a thought. This whole time they've made you think the mind is something, strange, something you can't see, you can't understand, you don't know what it's like, yo man, nobody knows what the mind is, nobody can put the mind on the table and study it and measure it and all that. Do you know what I mean? but we are generating the experience that is measuring the existence. It will always be biased by its own generation. This is the challenge. This is why I'm saying it's so bizarre. Just like everyone else, I thought, yeah, man, you can go and figure out this world. But you realize, no, it's like there's a positional play. That means life is more about, and let me go back to that thing about success. Guys, let me tell you this. Do you think success means to be a billionaire? If you think that's success, yeah, okay, that's one view. But what if success means if everybody's a billionaire? That means nothing. Do you understand? If everybody is the same thing, it means nothing. Do you know there's like somebody has to be one soul has to come and occupy the role of a capitalist. One soul has to come and occupy the role of a farmer. One soul has to come and occupy the role of, in some sense, like poverty-stricken child. You know, some soul has to come and occupy the role of being fat. You know, some soul has to come and occupy. And when you realize it's about the roles you play, you're gonna realize something that's gonna be the next talk I'm probably gonna give. Okay, and this is the idea. Okay, how do I say it? The outward deployment of self is more important than staying in a static meaning. And hear it from someone who was shy and introverted in his youth, that years later realized life, the value of existence is the existential positions, the existential plays you can make in this game. Okay, and I am telling you, ask yourself, what is your value system? Because from the moment you open your eyes in this world, a value proposition, every new person I meet, oh my god, another value proposition. And if you're somebody who's very like has a sort of OCD and trying to not clutter your mind, but your awareness is vast, that means you have like a big antenna range, but you don't like organizing things too much, but then because you have a huge antenna range, you have to organize things, but a part of you's like, no man, I want to be my silly inner child the whole time, but then the world's like, wait a minute though, I'm standing here, existence is waiting for you. So to me, somebody who has a hot dog stand, okay, by a Subway, and the dude's there from like, I don't know, the whole day, like 12 hours a day or something, like half a day, the dude is standing in the cold giving hot dogs for 20 years, surviving, right? And then there's a billionaire nobody sees, goes into a meeting, writes one deal, and suddenly done. In 1 second earned something that earned an abundance of resource, that in some sense that hot dog stand owner will never see in his lifetime. But that doesn't mean that that's failure. To me, that hot dog stand owner has a greater, our counter arguments can be made. I'm not putting down anybody, but I'm telling you that there is incredible value. That hot dog stand owner, okay, helped tons of hungry people. Okay, maybe thousands of hungry people. Do you understand what I mean? That hot dog stand owner made like people standing at that, what do you call it? Metro station or bus station, feel safer. Do you know what I mean? That means it wasn't empty. That person existed in the background. That hot dog stand existed in the background memories of people. Do you understand? Do you know? In so many human beings' memories, right? And to me, that hot dog stand owner, right, might not care about even metaphysics or even wonder about what the world is, but that to me, I salute you, sir. You were advanced. You had an outward deployment of yourself in the world. You played a role. You existed as something that God witnessed. And there is power in that. There is greatness in that. Okay, now I'm not saying, okay, now everybody be a hot dog owner, or now everybody be a billionaire, now everybody jump to what everybody thinks is the best thing. No, live your own life. Nobody has your eyes. Nobody has your DNA. Nobody's occupying the same moment of in the space-time continuum as you are. Nobody like you ever exists, and you are experiencing yourself for the first time, just like everybody in the moment. This is not just the first time I'm giving this lecture. This is the first time you're hearing it. This is the first moment we're all still existing and breathing, and the heart is happening still. Every existence is here, right? People are like, yo, man, this is intense. Like, people are like, what's going to happen after he drinks this coffee? Yeah, guys, go on. You can ask questions. But ask about the content. Or actually ask any question. It's fine. I'll adjust the answer. But ask a real question. Don't ask a question just because of the display of the question. Some people do that. And I'm like, you fool, you jester. Just, man, somebody in the chat section's like, Tomato is having a seizure. Something that is actually impossible to happen. Okay, so I think the people in the chat section, their minds are kind of like, going too into their own worlds. Okay. Again, we water the plants as much as needed. Anyways, folks, how long have I been speaking? 1 hour, 30 minutes. Okay, so now that I'm done with the intro, all right, folks, to get to it, it started from me being like, wait a minute, how can location be localized? How can we give a location to when the experience of location is happening within the moment of awareness? The whole point of this is to suggest that we are trying to find a singular answer to a singular problem, but it is in some sense a dualistic reality. Like, we can't ignore the dualistic position, right? So to me, if we have light and we have dark, this might sound bizarre, but it's also like we have the original and the simulated. Um, in other words, we have, and think of, I see it this way. Um, right now, it's an unknown world. Right now, I'm being an unknown self. But because I can notice myself, I'm knowing myself, that's the position of the known self. And because I'm knowing myself in a certain way and use that method to know the world, I generate a known world. So pretty much you're an unknown self in an unknown world using a known method to be a known self to generate a known world until the moment you realize you are putting life in a life that is actually unknown. So I think the honest answer is, if somebody asks me the question, do you know what life is? I will say, at what scale are we talking? Do you know? Can you guys still hear me? Oh my God, Tomato is somebody in the chat section. All right. Moments serve moments beyond the moment's understanding. To me, when I said, when you open your eyes and you get a value proposition, I treated that in this world, there's higher order processes that they need to be acknowledged first when you wake up. I have simplified that into a sort of relational experience in my psyche. When I wake up, first thing I do is I smile because I'm fascinated. I'm existing another day. Like, they're like, okay, people think that work begins in a certain building. No, work begins when you exist, because that's what force is. I identify as the presence of a force in a field, in the same way that I'm identifying as a form in a formed world, in a world of form. Anyways, folks, if there's any actual questions, feel free to ask. Somebody in the chat section's like, oh my God, you're a Jedi, you're using the Force. Guys, if I was a Jedi, do you know what I would do? If I was in the Star Wars universe, I'd legit have a backpack of like 100 lightsabers, and I'd throw them in the air, and I'd probably be like Yoda's second best student, you know. you know? And I'd be like, Yoda, why do I need to hold the lightsaber in my hand when I could use the Force to create 100 invisible hands? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you know what I mean? Yoda didn't need the cane, guys. That was aesthetic. That was bling. You know, Yoda was wearing bling with the cane. You're telling me a dude who's legit the essence of life needs a cane? Like, and also, like, Ip Man was in Star Wars, and that blew my mind. Was like they're bringing, like, it's like the Wing Chun universe has come far. Like, all right, so so guys, is there actually real questions, or are you guys just being playful in your own vibes? I don't understand. Somebody is saying what is happening as a question. What is happening is that you are you are in an unknown world that everybody thinks they know. And somebody says the second question, are you talking with anyone else apart from YouTube live? No, this is just on YouTube. I'm trying to, you know, think more like a businessman, even though I'm more inclined to think in long term. But I gotta, like, yeah, guys, things are in the works. You're gonna see probably like a Twitch stream. Guys, a round of applause for, intelligent listeners, are in the chat section. No, guys, I appreciate the comments. I'm joking. I've realized this, that if you take the outer realms too seriously, it's going to kind of crush you. And if you take the two inner realms too seriously, you lose sight of the outer realms. A human being has to have capabilities. These are like the wings of a bird. Like, we human beings don't have wings, but the closest thing we have is the stabilization and the ability to discriminate between our inner realms and outer realms. And when the inner realms and outer realms are synchronized, that's what you call a flow state. Okay, so I'll give you an example. So in these lectures, what you see I'm doing is that, not just because I've given these lectures, my inner realms move faster than my outer realms. So as I'm talking to you guys, I'm seeing a film. But because every word I'm vocalizing it, I'm also rehearing everything I'm saying. So there's this constant spiral of a sort of attention to my own communication. Pretty much where I'm going with this. In honor of the most advanced humanity, all of you have accepted who you are too soon. If we were to be honest, we are more unknown than known. If we are to be honest, everybody functions on faith, and it's so funny how small part of the conscious waking state is a sort of a logical clarity. Do you know? That means you don't question, and, like, the earth underneath, like the ground underneath your foot to, like, break. You don't expect chaos, and the system is still organized for you. That's a blessing, you know. And what do we do with blessings? We use them to generate more blessings, pretty much. It's like when they give you a seed, don't eat it, plant it. They're like, these sunflower seeds, though, we can sell a lot of them. I'm like, no, guys, don't do it. No, sunflower seeds are actually pretty. You don't know how many in Iranian culture, how many sunflower seeds have kind of served drivers who were about to fall asleep, and they just ate sunflower seeds to, like, get through their journey. This is so true in Persian culture. All right. God bless the viewers. God bless humanity. Begin wondering about the most advanced state of your own being. Begin when you communicate to others, speak to their most advanced self. pretty much this world, because we have a mind, the mind shows us what doesn't exist yet. So the mind is a probability generator, and because you can be aware of the different probabilities, you can endlessly create relationships between what you know. You know, because the mind can move in multiple ways from a single point. Anyways, thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful, in honor of the original system admin and unconditional moment of being that all conditions have manifested and arisen from and will return to. What we fear is the ultimate, I believe. But I shouldn't say fear. I should say, in Islam, in a deep Islamic view, there's three, I forget the exact terms, but there's three approaches. Like the first person believes in a system admin, believes in a world host, okay, but doesn't have the experience. The second person starts experiencing, like, it starts noticing the divine system, how the system's being administered, as if it knows itself from kind of outside of itself. It's deciding. That's how moments are happening. Moments are happening as if something outside of them is deciding what's happening to them. It's not just them. Okay? So wonder about the original power source of your world. And when you realize it's unconditional, and when you realize it's intelligent, then you'll realize why religion is even more exciting than extraterrestrial contact, whatever sort of fiction you can imagine, sci-fi you can imagine. Do you know why? Because it's like we're characters in a novel and we've noticed the author writing. And those who, as you get closer to the author, you are right now in a created state. Now, as you get closer, I guess the logical view is you become more of a creator, but the actual creator of creation is unconditional. You can only elevate and rise in rank if you're in a conditional realm. But if you're an unconditional being, what rank do you have? And for Muslims in Islamic theology, like if a Buddhist went to a Muslim and was like, hey man, I believe like in my past lives. Do you believe in past lives? The Muslim would say, I don't believe in past lives on earth, but I believe that before all souls were born in the womb, they entered the human position. Before they entered this world, they were in Alam al-Arwa, which means the realm of souls, the world of souls. And in the world of souls, all of us, all souls had ranks, okay? They had different ranks, and souls of the same rank knew each other and got along. You know, and sometimes souls were positioned outranked for where they are or underranked for where they are. It happens. You know, but from the Islamic view, but the Islamic view has a deeper understanding, because what bypasses, what overrides free will is destiny. Destiny means everything has happened from the system admin's view. That's why the system admin is all knowing. But to us, everything has not happened. For me, theologically, there's this clue that the sin Adam and Eve made was they listened to a simulated moderator. They listened to a simulated serpent, okay, rather than remembering their original commands of their souls. And I believe now, you know, I guess from a sort of theological view, their solar ancestors, their solar descendants, instead of being in heaven where the only one thing was haram, don't touch the apple, do you know, now so many things in this world have become haram. So they touched the simulation, and their descendants are now being tested inside a simulation. But the test that they failed, their ancestors have been given notice of, which means the task of souls is to remember the original command of their being, but because the original command was from an unconditional being, you reach the conclusion of faith. because the higher power is beyond the higher order process is beyond the lower order process's understanding. So in other words, my life is happening, my conditional life is happening in the presence of the unconditional life of a being that was neither born and neither created or can be destroyed, is an absolute being. That's what we're figuring out. We're not in a locational reality. We are the conditional aftermath of the source code commands of an unconditional being. So we're not in the, in my view, we're not in the original earth. We're not in the original world. We're not even our original selves, but there is something within us that has been commanded to know. And in the Holy Quran, this is, I'm a visual learner, and says it like this. Sorry guys, actually, I'm gonna pause here. I forgot to finish the thing I was sharing. So I told you there's 3 levels. The first level, you believe in God. The second level, you see the system. You see the divinity in the of the system. The third level, you are also have faith because you realize everything is under higher management. And that's the relaxing part. And then death no longer is the final moment, meeting the system admin is. So anyways, in the name of God, the most benevolent and the most merciful and the most advanced. Thank you for listening. Have a anyways, guys, I don't know how long it was on mute, but anyways, thank you for listening. I'm gonna end the talk here by saying that this realm has an original system admin, and those who care for what when you care for the future, if when you care for the present, the past stabilizes. When you care for the future, the present stabilizes. When you care beyond your time, do you know your future stabilizes? So live for something that is greater than your greatest individual ideas, and I am telling you, it will activate life beautifully. Anyways, thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent and the most merciful. And I guess, and dear viewers, let me know in the chats, not in the chat, in the comment section, let me know what your answer to this question is. You know, that is the title. Because my conclusion is all known stuff is happening in an unknown moment. And if location is known, it's happening within an unknown moment. Thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent and the most merciful.